welcome you to the Britain Board of Education regular meeting of April 7th, 6:01 p.m. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Barbara Marino.
Here.
Vice President Diana Reyes.
Here.
Secretary Anthony Kane with the C.
Yo.
Mr. Salvador Escobalas.
Here.
Anthony Kane with the K.
Here.
Mr. Joseph Listro.
Here.
Miss Annie Parker.
Here.
Miss Joan Pina.
Here.
Mr. Jose Rivera. And Miss Tina Santana.
Those are excused. Thank you. Just want to take a brief moment of meditation and like to ask the folks keep in their thoughts young Mr. Marvin and his family, please. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we've got public participation. Public participation. I have two folks here on the list. Margaret Keithline. And please, folks, you have 3 minutes for comments. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Margaret Keithline, and I'm a proud New Britain High School graduate of the class of 2016, and I served as my class president. I'm also joined tonight by our class treasurer, Matt Lewicki. It has recently come to my attention that Mr. Pierce has started the process to reallocate any funds in the class accounts of graduated students into the General Student Activity Fund for current students. I am not sure about other alumni classes, but I know the class of 2016 has over $6,000 in our class account, money which we raised and were told could be saved for our reunion, in this case a 10-year reunion since our 5-year reunion was not possible due to COVID. In my communications with Mr. Pierce, he cited best accounting practices as the primary force in needing to zero out alumni accounts. I have reviewed the board policy on student activity funds, number 3403, which outlines governing principles that must be in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 10237. New Britain's policy does not specify a time frame in which the funds must be used. Many other local school districts have rightfully elaborated on legislature policy to establish clear practices on a time frame for accounts to be closed out before being absorbed by the general school account. In efforts to benchmark best practices in our school district, I have gathered the policies in a few other school districts, including Ansonia, Ledyard, and Simsbury, and will share them all with you via email. The 3 aforementioned districts all allow funds to be maintained for, at minimum, a first-class reunion. I would support New Britain in developing a clear policy moving forward, but retroactive decisions are unjust. My classmates and I worked very hard to raise this money. At no point in time were we informed by our class advisors or the 5 principals we had during our 4 years at NBHS that these funds could not be maintained. I have not been privy to the paperwork that Mr. Pierce asked class advisors of graduated classes to sign. In fact, the appointed person to sign on behalf of my class was not our class advisor during the period in which the funds were raised. I have reached out to this staff person to clarify, and the response is somewhat vague. However, if it is under the guise of a donation, I know that Board Policy 3280 states that all donations over $500 must be approved by the board, and I have not seen review of this matter in previous board minutes. While I am sympathetic to the needs of current students, I do not think justice lies in taking away the money from former students, especially given that maintaining these accounts has been a decades-long practice. I hope that the board can find a way for our class to be able to use these funds for the purpose for which they were intended. Thank you.
All right, next on the list I've got John Ward.
Good evening, Superintendent, members of the board. Tonight I want to bring to your attention a matter of fairness and inclusivity, one that we really uphold, or that we claim to uphold as a district. The school district recognizes Christian and Muslim holidays by closing school, yet it does not extend the same recognition to the Jewish community for closing for Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. This is not just a matter of convenience, it's a matter of equity, respect, and inclusivity. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, are two of the holiest days in the Jewish religion. It is central to our faith and to spiritual lives as Jewish families. Yet Jewish students, staff, and educators are forced to choose between their religious obligations and school and work. Meanwhile, students of other Abrahamic faiths are afforded the ability to observe these holidays without penalty. New Britain prides itself on being an inclusive and diverse city, and our school district should reflect these values in practice, not just in words. By not closing for these two holidays, there's a double standard in place. I understand that some may argue that the Jewish student population in New Britain is too small to warrant the closing for these holidays. However, equity should not be about numbers. It's about fairness and ensuring that all religious communities are respected. If the size of a faith community determines whether a holiday is recognized, then we must ask the following question. At what point and at what percentage does a group become worthy of consideration? Religious freedom and inclusion should not be subject to a numbers game. Further, we must accommodate various cultures and religious observances by recognizing those holidays beyond what we have right now. Other school districts such as Hereford, West Hereford, and New Haven already recognize these holidays by closing schools. I urge this board to demonstrate its commitment to equity by revising the school calendar to include Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as district-wide holidays. Let's ensure that Jewish students, educators, and families are given the same respect and recognition as their peers. It is time for New Britain to align its policies with its values so that no student or family is ever forced to choose between their education or their faith. On a separate note, I want to comment on the flag policy. I don't completely agree with everything in the flag policy, but props to Mr. Kane for years of compromise, talking with different various parties to try to forge a compromise. When it comes to this policy, I hope that you adopt the amendments before you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there isn't anyone else on the list, but is there anyone else that wishes to speak before the board? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, thank you. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to modify the agenda. Okay, sounds good. We have 2 items to add to the agenda. If I could have a motion. So moved and second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okie dokie. So, first off, April is Autism Awareness Month, so I just wanted to read a resolution from the board regarding this. So, whereas autism spectrum disorder is a complex, lifelong developmental disorder that can impact an individual's social skills, communications, and relationships, and can vary in severity based on the individual. And whereas autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder in the United States, with 1 in 36 children being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. In the Consolidated School District of New Britain, we have, I believe you gave me this number, 557 students, roughly 5% of our students identified with autism on their individual education plan or IEP, excuse me. I'm not good at reading long things. And whereas autism disorders can affect all persons regardless of race, religion, socioeconomic status, or geography, and whereas there is a continued need for awareness and acceptance of those in our community living with autism and the uniqueness of their neurodiversity, through improving specialized support opportunities in education, employment, housing, healthcare, and long-term services. And whereas April is recognized as Autism Awareness Month to increase awareness about autism signs and symptoms and promote acceptance of individuals with autism. And whereas during April 2025, the aim of autism awareness is to celebrate differences and build an inclusive society for individuals with autism to live fully through connection and acceptance. Now therefore be it resolved by the New Britain Board of Education that said members hereby recognize April 2025 as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. Thank you. And the second item.
Do you care to entertain a motion to accept that resolution?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. And the other item that we are adding?
I recommend a motion from the board to adopt June 13th, 2025 as the official graduation date for New Britain High School.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've got that. Moving on to reports. You're up, sir. Superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. As always, we have a number of really fine things to celebrate, but before we get to the celebrations, I just want to once again encourage everybody who's here with us tonight, everybody who's watching, students, staff members, parents, to advocate for the school's budget. And I say this with perhaps all seriousness. I'm not one to get overly animated or emotional, but as I've said to the board previously, this is my 10th year serving as a Connecticut superintendent, and this is the budget about which I'm the most worried. I do very, very strongly encourage everybody who's here tonight, parents, students, staff members, family, to very politely and very respectfully advocate with the Common Council for support of the board's budget as presented. It's not unique. You can read plenty of stories about other districts with such struggles. Unfortunately, it tends to be the urban districts of Connecticut who have these struggles. But I do hope that everybody will consider respectfully and politely communicating with Common Council about your support for the budget. And I appreciate it if you do so. Thank you. Now, of course, to the more optimistic things. We always like to use the superintendent's report to highlight our latest edition of the District Dispatch. Really excellent, really inspirational stories this month. In the Building the Beacon article, really nice celebration of two fantastic middle school students from Slade who are already leaders in our Ed Rising program. And we really hope that they will go on to become educators and come back and serve right here in New Britain. Additionally, featured throughout and also on our social media, it's a great time of year. If you haven't already, please do get out and enjoy things like the production of curtains at the high school, which was wonderful, music, concerts, art shows. It's a great time of year in a school district to be celebrating what our kids do so well. Wonderful story on page 2 about our football students going and volunteering at Holmes Elementary School to read to kids. Really heartwarming story. I want to pay special attention to somebody who received one of my coins. Ms. Cushman received it at Smith School for her excellent work. But even more notable was a young man, Hunter Turek, received recognition from one of his teachers, and I was happy to present him one of the coin. A friend of his was injured while they were fishing together, and this young man knew what to do and hiked out with his friend on his back. Really nice story of good kids doing good things. Page 6, for the first time ever, we have a first place victor at the New England Wrestling Championships, and she just happens to be a female. Really great story about Cadence Atkinson. And some of the updates that you'll find that have already been on our social media. I think it's a trademarked term, but I'm going to use it anyway. 3-peat for our marching band at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I'm not sure if it cost me $5 to say the word 3-peat because it's trademarked, but it's fun to say anyway. On to the right of that, page 9, it's always a wonderful thing that we host the Unified Basketball Tournament. I was able to attend briefly there. Really great story. And of course, I want to extend the condolences that were extended by the board president. My condolences to the family of Yadriel Marvin and his friends. Very sad story about a student who fought very hard for very long. So with that, Madam President, is my report for this evening.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, committee reports. We'll start with policy.
Policy Med, we do have 3 new policies on the agenda, which were recommended by Paige. We also have one on the agenda, which is just a small revision of our flag policy.
All right, personnel.
Yes, we met. So we have 4 items on the consent agenda. 3 job description. Actually, they're all job description. 1 new job description for people service manager. Okay.
Finance.
Finance, we met 2 weeks ago. We received 2 donations on behalf of the district from 3 parties. We also did a few purchases, including we started working on remodeling the weight room over at the high school. We also got an update on the homes remodel and started talking about this Smith School remodel as well. Got some updates on that.
All right, and curriculum.
2 items on the consent agenda. If you love a teacher, construction 1, child development 1, personal finance is item A, and then updates to the Immigrant History Snapshot of America course as requested.
Okay, thank you. Board reports? Anything? I do want to say the St. Patrick's Day Parade, the Britain contingent, and the band, everybody was into the band, loved the band. They were a huge hit with everyone on either side of the street, and we took up all of Main Street, the section at one point in time. It was awesome. It was awesome. It was great.
I would say I was also at the Ed Rising conference. Dr. Sanders was there, and it was great to see the middle school kids there, but the high school kids showed up. They did a great job. I was one of the judges, and judging one of the winners. Say that. But anyway, it was it's good to see just the kids sort of really into what it takes to do a lesson, and it's like I've seen these presentations year after year get better and better. And, Ms. Marquez is phenomenal. What she's putting into those kids and pouring into those kids about how you're ready, how to be ready in front of kids is really, really cool. It's a great time, lots and lots of kids, but really great kids stood out as well.
And I attended a local heroes program at the Boys and Girls Club. And with the middle school, when they invited me, oh my God, they were in middle school. But I was so impressed. And we did a few activities. They asked us some questions. But I was so impressed with the questions they asked. And the fact that when you asked them a question, they gave you 4 answers, like they knew what they wanted to do when they finished high school and that whole thing. So it was through the trio program from Central. And they had a couple of Central students, cheerleader, cheerleaders, and then one guy who's a cheerleader. And I was very, very impressed.
Last Wednesday, attended art show and band concert at the high school. And once again, floored by the talent that's out there. And I, just as an aside, play with the band as a guest performer, and the music was more challenging than stuff I played in years. So definitely leveling up there. And then Thursday evening, attended Vance, and they had a reading. What's that? Camp Vance. Camp Vance had the name of it. I saw this last week. And great turnout. A lot of families, a lot of parents out there with their kids doing different reading activities throughout the school. So very well attended. So kudos to the Vance.
Yeah, no, I was at the blood drive on Friday, and I walked through to see all the art displayed, and I was we've got a lot of talented young people in our district. We really do.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very,
Very
much so.
talented.
Anything else? All right, our student reps aren't here tonight, so we'll cruise right by that. We have a presentation on school climate survey.
Yep. Thank you, Madam President. So we have with us tonight Ms. Kata Soler and Mr. Harold Richardson, who will take us through the results of our school climate survey. This is an annual survey that we conduct in accordance with state statute.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Gasper. Like Superintendent Gasper said, we'll be sharing those findings with you today. What we're going to do is we're going to go through and show you what's working really well for our students, our families, our staff, what were some trends across all stakeholders, and then why we believe those things are working. And then we will also share our areas of growth. What were those trends and what are we doing to address those areas of growth? So I'll go ahead and start with our students, what's working well. I just wanted to share this survey was shared with all our grades 3 to 12 students. We had 56% of our students respond. Something that's really working well is relationships. 82% of our students believe their teachers care about them. 74% of our students say their teachers push them to think critically. 74% of our students set learning goals and track their progress. And 74% of our students regularly receive feedback from their teachers. Those were some areas where we are doing well. Moving on to our families, this is what's working for our families. We got 11% of our families share feedback. This was sent out to all parents in the district. It was shared out in multiple ways. So school climate and leadership is really working with our families. 87% believe their child's principal is a good leader. 84% feel their child's school is safe and welcoming. And 85% say their child feels safe at school. When it comes to student experience, 76 or 77% of our parents agree their child has opportunities to be successful in school. Do you have a question?
Did you say 11%?
Yes.
That was in multiple languages, I'm sure, yes?
Yes.
Yes. And it was emailed by the district. It was shared, encouraged during conferences, and also administrators did their own communication. So we'll move on to what is working well with our staff. Here we had 60% of the staff responded. 83% of staff agree or strongly agree that their leaders are genuinely concerned for their welfare. 83% believe their principal or administrator is a good leader. And when it comes to instruction and feedback, 89% regularly provide feedback to students, and 89% challenge students to use higher order thinking skills. Mr. Richardson will share out trends.
So trends across all of our constituents. First of all, in leadership across stakeholders, for staff, parents, and students, you can see that all of us are in the 80% range. The staff believe their principal is an administrator is a good leader. The parents believe their child's principal is a good leader, and the students believe their principal is a good leader. So I think that's very telling for our district and what we have to offer with our leaders in our buildings. The takeaway: school leadership is widely respected, which means principals have strong credibility to drive change. Teachers are supportive and engaging. You see our staff, students, and parents again. 88.7% of students or staff provide students with regular feedback. We want that a little bit higher, right? That students, 81% or 82% believe their teachers care about them, and parents, 77% feel their child has opportunities for success. So the takeaway there is that teachers are seen as caring and effective. They create a strong foundation for improvement, student engagement and achievement. More trends, trending in the positive way. High expectations for student learning. 89% of staff say they challenge students to think critically. 74% of students say teachers do push them to think. Again, this is grades 3 to 12. And our takeaway, our schools promote rigorous learning, which can be leveraged to further boost academic success. And I'll talk about that a little later with our DOK priority as a district. Overall positive school climate. For staff, 76.5% feel safe in their buildings, and parents, about 85%, say their child feels safe at school. This differs a little bit from K to 5 and 6-12, when we, or 3.5 and 6.12 when we look at our data, of course. The takeaway is while student safety concerns exist, staff and parents generally feel comfortable with our school environment, providing a stable foundation to address student concerns. Oh, I'm still on. The why we think all these things are so positive, right? First of all, we want to start with relationships. You saw a lot of great information there from our leaders in our schools. We believe it's them that create the positive relationships that we see happening between our staff, students, and families. Leadership, PD that we have from central office to provide to our staff around rounding, hacking school discipline. We model some of the things that we want to see from top down as a district down to our students. Our SEL curriculum and restorative practices that we participate in as a school district. We have challenging curriculum. Again, our priority as a district is focusing on DOK and rigor, and so that shows in our data as well. We have a common vision developed through school growth plans that build on continuity across all of our schools. Everybody has a school growth plan that looks the same, not identical with each of their goals, but the format is the same for everyone. We have strong systems and structures for collaboration that goes down to each school having an ECT time where teachers have the opportunity to collaborate with one another for academic and social emotional support. School climate, every school has a school climate plan. PBIS, we all are engaged in PBIS as a school district through the leadership of our assistant coordinator of school culture and the MTSS team that we have developed for the district as well. We also have behavioral support staff included in professional development right now on restorative practices, and that includes BSAs, deans, counselors, and other support personnel.
So we have some areas of where we're shining, and then we have some areas where we can grow, right? So when we're looking at areas of growth, as you guys noticed in the previous one, parents and staff feel safe at schools. However, only 68% of our students feel safe at school, compared to the 76% of staff and the 85% of parents. So there is discrepancy in those survey results between the stakeholders. Student engagement and enjoyment of school, only 55 or 56% of our students like going to school each day. So that's another area where we need to really address. And only 40% of students believe their peers are respectful and kind, reinforcing concerns from staff and parents. So we'll see that is also an area of growth coming from the parents and the staff about kids being kind to each other and being respectful. So you'll see it here in families.
Yes.
So what are we doing about that?
We're gonna get there. Yeah.
Sorry, I jump the gun there.
It's okay. So again, 69% of the parents believe students at their child's school are respectful towards each other. There is also an area of growth in communication and engagement. 29% of parents disagree or strongly disagree that they receive regular feedback about their child's learning, and 30% do not receive positive communication about their child.
This is out of the 11% that respond.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes, right, the ones that are not happy are the ones that will tend to respond. It's kind of like those reviews you see on Yelp. So areas of growth for staff. Again, 56.6% of staff believe students show respect to each other, so that was low. That was another where it came up again, where students they don't feel students are respectful to each other. And then professional learning opportunities, 40% of staff are not satisfied with professional development opportunities provided.
Is there a difference in those between grade levels, like the middle school, elementary versus high school? Or was it, because this is overall? Right?
This is overall, yes.
Okay,
So
we
yes.
didn't see a spike somewhere and a lower, because this just averaged out.
This is averaged out, yes.
Yes. So in which section?
I'm just what you just looked at, the student respect and behavior, only 56.6% of staff and the students show respect. Is that, and that's across all
Definitely.
K through?
Definitely as the grade level goes up, that goes down.
Okay.
Right. So in our 612 group, we see a lower percentage of students that say
They're nice.
they're nice to each other. Right. We see it in elementaries as well, though.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
Trends.
So again, going off the trends of what Kata just talked about, peer respect is a major concern. None of our principals were happy with the results that were found here. Staff, only 56.6 believe students show respect to each other. Parents, about 70%, that's the highest one, feel students treat each other with respect. And students, only 40% believe their peers are kind of respectful. So all three groups report concerns about student behavior and peer interactions with one another. Discrepancy in safety perceptions between adults and students. While our staff and parents feel that they're safe in buildings, only 68% of students feel they're safe at school. Adults feel safer than students do. That's our trend there. We have gaps in communication and engagement. Only 29% of parents that were surveyed feel they do not receive regular feedback on their child's progress. Parents also, 30% of them do not get positive communication from schools. And students, only 55% like going to school each day, showing disengagement. School to home communication and student engagement need to improve. What are we going to do about it, and what are we trying to do about it?
My favorite slide.
The state is mandating that all schools starting in July of 2025 have a climate specialist. We already have that established. All of our climate specialists are engaged in receiving restorative practice trainers. We have training for that going on now, and we'll be participating in that over the summer. So that's a huge step for our district. We are in year one of becoming a positive behavior interventions and support school district. So this is only year one, which is considered a lot of a planning year when we roll out PBIS to all of our schools. And one of the key components of PBIS is having expectations for each building. And when we talk about respect, I want to say maybe 90% of our schools have respect as an expectation in what they're rolling out. So we really want to focus on that to make sure that all of our constituents are respectful to one another, especially student-to-student interactions. So we're providing PD to administrators, conducting walkthroughs with feedback at each of our schools. That's currently happening now. And each school gets individual school support because some schools are further along than others when it comes to rollout of PBIS. We have the Say Something Anonymous reporting system. I'll be doing a separate report and presentation on that in an upcoming board meeting, but that's been really helpful when it comes to identifying caring adults in each building, as well as students sending out tips when they think one of their friends are in danger of a life-threatening situation. We have surveillance cameras in all of our buildings. A focus for our principals is to create a plan to ensure they provide teachers with regular feedback about their child's learning and positive communication. So this has been a goal of many of our principals for the last couple of years. You can tell from our survey, even participation from parents, that there's a gap right now between family and school when it comes to certain things. Like some schools have higher PTO presence than other schools. Some schools get higher survey feedback participation than others. We've seen this as a trend across our district, and there's just ways that we gotta help improve in those areas. I know our two middle schools tried sessions with parents on the Yonder phones and social media. That hasn't gone over as well as we've like to see it. We got one more for each of our two large middle schools, so we'll see how that goes as well. The PDEC committee is also working hard to address professional development for teachers. One of the slides that you didn't see here was that some of our staff members feel that professional development across the district isn't worth what they want from, or they aren't seeing what they want from our school district. So we're working with PDEC to help that. And then we're partnering with CBOs, and our assistant coordinator of school culture just had a meeting with CBOs to talk about our restorative efforts and our PBIS efforts at each of the schools, so they know how to interact with our kids moving forward. This is our presentation right now. We'll take questions.
Could you just outline the components of restorative practice as being rolled out to staff right now?
So right now, we have all our climate specialists and or a social worker from the school going to training to become a restorative practice trainer. So they come back and they turnkey the training to the staff so that it's district-wide. The idea was, right, I'm one person, so I needed a little bit of support. So they're getting trained, and when they finish the training, they will get all of the materials needed to bring it back to schools and be able to train. But I'm meeting also with them to debrief on each session and kind of really saying, okay, what are we bringing back to our district and how are we going to roll this out so there's consistency across.
So what are the main tenets?
Oh, okay. Right, I'm sorry. So the main tenets are really like around the IRP questions, right? So having mediations with the students, conferencing with them, being able to have mediation. It could be student to student, it could be student to teacher, or even admin to teacher or student. So being able to have those mediations between them, but also being able to cultivate empathy, repair the harm. The big part of it is repairing the harm, right? And making sure this doesn't mean kids don't get consequences, but they have to be logical consequences that they can learn from, right? If a kid does something and we send them home, they're suspended, did they actually learn something, right? So if they trash a room or something, the idea is that they actually clean up the room and then they are able to get into a circle with their class and apologize and be able to hear the students out about how it affected them when they were in the setting. So it's about, a big part of it is repairing the harm and being able to hold them accountable for their actions. So that's a big part of it. But cultivating empathy, having a growth mindset, those are all part of the tenets of restorative practice. Anything you want to add?
No.
Okay.
I appreciate that. It sounds like a very balanced approach. And the reason I asked the question, to be frank, is because in years past, having children who are in the district, who are middle school, high school, I've heard that the inconsistency comes with the consequence, where kids may apologize, but there's really no consequence attached to it, and it's sorry, but there's little meaning behind that apology or making up for it if there's no consequence to hold them accountable and the behaviors, the behaviors don't change. So
right.
I appreciate the balanced approach because I think it can be very effective if done correctly.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a huge part of this whole piece around restorative is adult accountability. Growth mindset with adults have to change. It has to be a full buy-in from all the adults that's related to it, because sometimes adults hold grudges against students, and that's not where we want to be, right? So that's a major component of it, is that growth mindset for adults, that they're able to look at what a student did, have a student apologize on their part if they've done some wrong, make amends towards each other in a circle up kind of environment, and move on from the situation. And sometimes for adults, as we all humans, it's hard for that to happen.
And I was just going to add, it's really important to close the circle so that if a student does get pulled out and they're talked to, right? There's a conference between, let's say, the dean of students. They go back. That conversation has to happen with the teacher in order to come back into the classroom. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of the training. You said there's a climate specialist for every school, and the social workers. I'm just.
So I'm sorry. Yeah, I can clarify that. So there's a climate specialist doesn't mean it's an additional position.
No.
It's a roles and responsibilities. So that assistant principals, the schools that have assistant principals, that's the climate specialist. But our smaller or alternative programs that don't, then the social workers, the climate specialists.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. So, are there? You said you were debriefing with them after the training. I know that was recently held. Are they going to have an opportunity for them to meet as a group? In other words, you put them back into the schools to now train the rest of the folks. Or is there going to be opportunity for them to come back and meet and support one another?
Yes. No, I do hold climate meetings with them.
Okay.
We've had about 3. I think our next one is May 9th, because the last there's 2 prereqs to the advanced training where you become the trainer, which is in June. And that last one is April 29th. And we're meeting, I believe, is like May 9th as a group at Slade Middle School.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned there that one of the concerns was the 40% of parents seems to be positive communication, and you mentioned that to be an area of growth. What steps do you have planned to increase that? Since the principals are be pushing for that, what ways are you guys planning to increase that number?
I mean, so that lies with each school and how and what participation they had from or what situation they're in based on their own specific data. So I can't speak to what each school is going to do, but each school will have to have a plan to address what they're going to do to have more communication, especially on the positive side, for their parents moving forward. I know one of the things that the high school is doing next year is they're actually pushing. They're making sure their parent-teacher conference happens during the midpoint of the semester or the quarter, because they want to have that gap to where families have a chance to or students have a chance to either get better at what they're doing, or family has a chance to ask questions before their grades actually come out. So we think that that will allow more families to come in during parent-teacher conference to have a touch point with teachers as needed.
And just to be a little more specific, Mr. Richardson, that's something that you and Ms. Bordelot will build into principals' goals with you as their evaluators.
Yeah, for next year.
So,
Yes, Ms. Parker.
one of the things that I used to do, that first week of school, I contacted all my parents before the kids had a chance to act up and make that positive contact, because it may be hard to find one later. But if they've already met you in that situation where you're saying all these wonderful things about the kids, they won't go with some other stuff later on. So you can do that. And that used to be my own personal goal every year, was to make sure I called.
So I know that there are some schools that do that. The principals have, within the first, 2 weeks, you have to make contact with all parents. But I don't know, I can't say if it's consistent across the district.
A good suggestion to give them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Superintendent, I have a question. I know that only so much can be taken from 11% return with parents. Teachers and students who took it, I'm assuming higher numbers because they were in school when they took the survey.
Yeah, 55.
For
Information.
That's correct. Students took it while they were in school.
Yes.
And staff was afforded the opportunity.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
As
All
well.
right.
So higher numbers both for them. I think we are over 50% of the students participated,
Okay.
and higher than that, over 60% of the staff
Okay.
participated.
All right. Were there any other? I know you talked a little bit about disaggregated trends, looking at high school versus elementary. Were there any other things that popped out besides behavior, whether it be feedback or special ed families or anything like that may have become apparent?
Nothing
No,
that I
no.
can think of. Yeah.
All right. Just curious. Thank you.
Tina Santana.
Tina's online. She raised her hand.
Can we get her on?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Tina?
I feel like I should be by a tree. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yes.
now? First off, thank you very much, and I apologize to everyone that I'm not there in person. CJ tested positive for COVID, and so I'm at home with him instead of coughing on everybody over there. And so my question for you is this. Thank you very much for that presentation, because I was eagerly awaiting that. And so I understand that I am trying to wrap my head around the 11% of our stakeholder families that only responded. My question for you is this: the separation or how the special ed, which makes up almost 25% of our district, how was that factored in? Can you speak to that? And then kind of going forward, what the next steps would be to extend that? Because I will share with you that, like Annie Parker, I actually started the year off making sure that I made contact with my staff, but they've always been very proactive about that. I've been very lucky. My staff actually does contact me first at the beginning of the year, sometimes even before the school year starts. And we do have a plan for, kind of going forward contact, not only establishing the contact, but getting to know the kid at baseline. So that way, if there is anything that is, that they would foresee as challenging, or that they have any concerns about, that they are welcome to get a hold of me. But I just wanted to be able to put that out there. So thank you, Annie, for saying that earlier. But also back to my question, How are we getting them to the table and getting their feedback, or my feedback, because I know I had to do the report 3 times because I have 3 kids in Pathways, and how that kind of all factors in. How are we counting the special ed families in their feedback? I'm going to silence myself now so that I can hear your answer.
I don't think right now we have data compared to the special ed students right now. We didn't look at that for this presentation. But one of the things I've seen in the past done, because we do our surveys anonymously, is if we move to collect information from each family, even if they have it, even if they decline to participate, that we still track who has and who hasn't done the surveys. I've seen it more successful to get family participation with actually having a student ID number attached to which survey that the parent filled out. Again, they would have the option to not complete a survey, just to mark that they actually got the notification that there was a survey. That helps us reach out more to families that haven't participated. That's just one idea that I've seen work that we may go down and explore. But we don't have information right now in front of us for the number of special ed families that participated versus not. But like Dr. Gasper said, this would be part of our goal setting with schools moving forward.
And we continue to look for more ways to get more parent engagement. So Ms. Langer is here fortuitously. Can you just recount what are the ways in which we attempted to get parent engagement?
Sure. So we did multiple rounds of phone call, email, and text. We used our social media platforms. We partnered with different community partners in the city for them to push it out to the families that they are engaged with. Those are our district level strategies. And in addition to printing flyers for schools for their parent-teacher conferences tonight. Right. And then on top of that, I coached the administrators and how they could do those same techniques. So the message would come from both my name and from their name, with the hope that maybe some families would be more likely to respond to their administrator. So all families should have received it from both of those entities. And if you have children in more than one school, then more than one administrator and myself.
So obviously, we don't like the 11% number either. We will continue to explore and expand our ways of outreach, but at this point we're making, I think, more than a good faith effort, but we'll continue to explore and expand new ways in the future.
Is it social media? We're doing that.
Very much so.
Yeah, because
I believe it was even tagged, pinned for a while.
It was pinned at the top of our pages so that it was the first thing you would have seen if you went to our Facebook page. You wouldn't have to scroll for it. But we tried this year with the text link to families to just make it that much easier. And all those things I just mentioned were in 3 languages. So we have to look at some best practices out there and try to get creative and find some new ways.
How about the churches, the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, those different activities?
Were those some of the organizations that you mentioned?
Some of them, yes. To be honest, not. We could be stronger in the faith-based sector. That's an area that we're constantly trying to really up our relationships with. So if anyone from the board has recommendations for contacts that they think would be strong for us to partner with, please send them my way. I'll definitely try to facilitate that relationship. Boys and Girls Club is a little after school.
Really, Miss Parker?
Well, they have Reverend Rogers, doesn't he have the ministers? You're gonna put that on through Sanders. Okay, there you go.
And just one question on the survey. Out of curiosity, is that a standard survey for all schools in the state as far as the questions go, or do we design it ourselves?
We design it ourselves.
We do. Okay.
It's taken from a survey that, quite honestly, that previously we used to pay for. We decided that we could do just as effective of a job using a Google form as opposed to paying somebody else to do what ended up being quite basic data analysis. So I forget what that contract was. Dr. Sanders? Studer.
It was very expensive.
And what was the approximate cost per year?
Probably what, $78,000?
Wow. Whoa. Correct. So we're not stealing their language, but we are taking kind of the simplicity of.
How much is it costing us now using?
That would be 0. It's costing us time. It's costing us time with these good people. but it's one of the contracts that I suggested we sunset about a year ago when I saw the quality of information we were getting. It's not that it's not a reputable company, they are a reputable company, but for the purposes, and I think the other thing to Mr. Listro's question is we try not to have the survey be too long. We try to get the information that we think is most pertinent because we don't want a 52 question survey that maybe they don't finish.
And so to that point, this survey that we offer every winter is no more than 10 questions. And then the one that we do in the spring is no more than 20 questions, I believe.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just two things, if I may. First would be going back to what Ms. Lange was saying before, between the phone calls, social media, text messaging. Do we know what the return rate was on each medium?
We do have that data. I can look into that and compare it to other reports. Sometimes we do analyze like the subject, does the subject, what we put in the subject line of different communication make a difference in terms of the open rate and the bounce back? We can break that out.
Be interesting just to see like what's working and maybe what's not. The other thing was an idea, and I know years ago when my kids were still elementary, I know some schools would have Chromebooks outside of every classroom during conferences, during different like spring open houses if kids were transitioning in, and then that way while the parent was waiting in the hallway, they could do the survey. I don't know if it would improve the return rate, but if it's something that's maybe some schools are doing it. It'd be interesting to see what the success rates are.
Did we use that technique?
So yes, I was going to say, I'm sorry, FSLs did work. Like, so when parents were coming in, they were encouraged to complete. They weren't at every classroom, but they were at the entrance of every school.
Okay, all right.
Along with QR codes on the doors when they came in.
How about doing some kind of raffle? Have, when they turn their survey in, they get a ticket, a raffle ticket, and then ask people to donate the prizes.
Do we have a policy around that?
We would have to be careful. But we can explore incentives like that.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you both for presenting.
Thank you.
All righty, moving on.
Just one thing for one. Sure. Can we at some point maybe this year revisit this topic and find out, especially how this, what do they call it, restoring this?
Absolutely.
I have lots of questions.
Absolutely. Yep.
All righty, moving on to new business. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting for March 4th, 2025?
So moved.
Okay, any comments, questions, changes, enhancements? All right. Anyone in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh.
I think you need a motion.
Oh,
motion to approve?
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. All righty. We have a report of personnel transactions and extracurricular appointments.
You have that before you. It's hard to get quantitative data on things like this from other districts. I will say though that last night I was having a phone conversation with someone who works in another one of Connecticut's urban districts. And that person's school currently has no second grade teachers. So we are always trying to do better with filling our openings, but I want to once again commend Dr. Sanders and her team for the good work that they are doing. And those were not special education teachers, those were regularly certified second grade teachers. The children attending that school, if they were in second grade, they did not have a teacher.
I saw the ctpost.com got an email forwarded to me today about the article on the school vacancies throughout the state. I think we were at 7th or 8th highest state, and we only have like 20 teacher vacancies, mainly paraeducators. But then when you look at Hartford, had the highest, and they were like 200 something.
Yeah. But you've been correcting for sizes. They're about 5 times as large as we.
Yeah, and I'm still thinking, when you look at some of the districts that were ahead of us, like, oh, only 20 compared to some of these that were way ahead of us. So I still think credit Dr. Sanders.
Yeah. We're always trying to do better. Of course, we want to fully staff the district, but
These hard areas, though, show us.
yeah, and again, I don't want to bird walk too much as your superintendent, but as I was pulling into the garage this afternoon, coming back from the school visit, I heard a radio announcement, an ad for auto mechanics with a $5,000 signing bonus. So there certainly is a labor shortage. When people ask me about the teacher shortage, I talk about the labor shortage. I mean, it's hard to go somewhere without seeing a billboard advertising that they need plumbers or they need HVAC, they need insurance adjusters. So, right, the vacancy list is always longer than we want it to be, but at least anecdotally, to what I'm able to glean talking to my superintendent counterparts, I believe that Dr. Sanders' team is doing the best job that we can at this point.
I move to accept the personnel transaction report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I just feel weird looking at the retirements and I see people my age retiring. We're the same age, Dr.
Does it make you jealous like it does me, Mr. King?
Yeah, but it also makes me feel old that people our age are retiring. We're not old enough to retire.
Not yet.
Alrighty.
I did spend some money on Powerball a couple weeks ago.
In fact, you're still here.
All right, and then we have item C, the enrollment report.
Trending about where we've been, it kind of fluctuates up and down. We're slightly down from our high in kind of the October, November, December range, but that is a typical pattern for us. Just informational, correct? Yep.
All right. Item D, looking for a motion to approve new board policy P9010, limits of authority.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns?
A little bit about that. Concerning the authority, what are we doing?
So this is one of the policies that were indicated in our policy audit. The recommended language here comes straight from the state.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. All right. Motion carries. All right. Item E, new board policy P9012, legal responsibilities of the board. Again, this is another one that came through the CAVE audit and their language, suggested language.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion, questions?
It's all stuff that we normally do anyway, just codifying it.
It was recommended to be added, that was what it was. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty, item F, new board policy P9020, public statements. This has to do with public statements that would be made by, not public participation, but public statements made by board members. And again, this was another item that was result of the audit and recommended by CAVE and their language. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion, comments, questions, concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item G, new review board policy P6115.3, flag policy. this, we had a request to make a modification or amend the existing flag policy as a result of a request by Mr. Kane and was reviewed during policy committee.
So the change to this one is,
We have to move it.
You have to
Someone
move-
has to move it. I don't need
Oh,
Mr. Sutton.
motion to approve.
I move.
second.
All right.
Yeah, it was just a simple request, driving to high school all the time and seeing the third flagpole, which is always there, but usually it's empty. So, thinking, it'd be nice to have, city pride, little school pride. So the request would be to add the sentence at the end of paragraph 1. If a school building has more than 2 flagpoles, it should be standard practice to regularly fly the city flag or an approved school flag on the third flagpole. So it could be the hurricane flag, the double red field with a black square, or the City of New Britain flag, or if another school has a third flagpole, whatever school flag they have, or city flag.
Well, my purpose is like what's right behind you. We have the flagpoles right behind you, and we have the city flag right here.
Correct.
And I can't remember what town I was in recently. I drove by, and they have 3 flagpoles and their city flag flying. So I think it's standard practice. If we're not flying a special event flag, for example, we have the city flag flying.
I think it could be a point of pride. Kids are proud of their school and the city, and it could be a nice thing to go in and see that double hurricane flag flying.
Especially for pushing grand history.
And it's double. It's not one. One is a storm warning, so we have to have 2.
From the superintendent, I would just ask that the board consider for this change an effective date in the future, just so that if we don't already have in our possession the flags mentioned here, that we would have some time to get them in without being out of compliance with the policy.
Okay. So if we do something effective July 1st.
That would be plenty of time.
Yep.
So request to amend an effective date for this change for July 1st, 2025. Not a problem.
You have a hand raised. You have a hand raised.
Tina? Okay. Tina, are you there?
I just wanted to say thank you to little Tony for all the work that he put into this. I'm sorry, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Did we have a flag request, did we not?
It's been honored, and that student made an amendment of the date, and that's been honored as well.
Awesome, thank you. I remembered seeing
I already
something.
spoke to Mr. Pierce about that, yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone wants to remove from the consent agenda before we go forward? Let me guess, item H.
No, Jay, please.
J, please, okay. Anything else? All right, so we need a separate motion to approve item J, grant an early start CT, youth state-funded early care and education program, combining 3 existing programs into one.
So moved.
And seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, going back to the remainder of the consent agenda. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Is there any other business as permitted by law? So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.